Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Life Recovery Today. Special guest today, Lori Burns. We're going to be talking about the impact of addiction on families. I hope that that's going to be meaningful to you. But first, I want to mention something to you, and I really want to talk to just you guys out there. One of the laws of life recovery is that whenever we experience and choose to sacrifice, well, there's a fulfillment on the other side of that. But it takes the sacrifice first. You know, looking at being a biblical man, or let's just say a man who's a Christian who happens to be married, we hear this term a lot, servant leadership. And I just don't think that quite gets it. Because servant leadership kind of sounds like I am a leader and I will choose to serve whenever I choose to serve. And the way it's described in Scripture, it's just not quite that tidy. I think it's more like die to yourself leadership. Messy, and it's painful. It's not about, I'm going to show up to all my kids' games and all the practices I can't. No, it's having a child that doesn't want to have games. They don't like contact sports. It's being there for my son who wants to dance or sing or bowl or whatever it is, but I'm there no matter what, and they know it. That's dying to yourself and your dreams and all that kind of stuff. I think that's what's required. It's not coming home from playing golf one afternoon and doing the dishes for your wife. No, it's choosing not to be the fourth in the foursome because your family needs you at home. Now, I'm not against playing golf, but I am against worshiping golf more than serving the family. No matter what you're in, when you sacrifice, there is a reward, and it is this fulfillment. And if you think that just doing a little service here or service there is what's called for, maybe you ought to look at the life of Jesus, who truly gave up every benefit, every luxury of the universe, just so we could all be forgiven and be free. I think a lot of times recovery is the recovery from self and self-obsession. And it all begins when we finally surrender what we thought we were supposed to be, what we thought would provide fulfillment, and get into this very difficult but fulfilling world called sacrifice and surrender. We'll take a break. We'll come right back and hope that something we have to say is going to be helpful to you on Life Recovery Today.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. Special guest, Lori Burns. Lori, welcome. Glad you're here. Now, Lori, well, there's this place called the New Day Center.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Executive Director.
Correct.
And she's been in counseling, and she's got a master's degree, and she specializes in addiction and all this other stuff. But maybe the biggest qualification that you have is a family background where you learned a lot about addiction. Let's talk about that. Tell us about what it was like growing up.
Okay. Well, when I was younger, I didn't really recognize to begin with I was part of a home that had addiction. And actually, many members of my family struggled with addiction and recovery. When you're a kid, you just think dad drinking, dad's behaviors, you just think they're normal.
Yeah.
So I thought I was just living a normal life as a kid until I hit about age 10, so going into 5th grade, 6th grade. And my parents divorced, and I couldn't figure out, like, that's kind of when my whole world fell apart, and I was like, kind of what's going on? And my mom was a very solid Christian, was a counselor herself, and she was attempting to help us find help. So I found myself in counseling offices and doing groups, and I was like, wait a minute, like, something's wrong with my family, like, besides just the divorce. And that's when awareness started hitting me that my father was an alcoholic. I had other members of my family, uncles and stuff, who were all alcoholics as well. And our family was really broken. And I started to realize as I moved into middle school that it wasn't just my dad that was broken. We as a family unit were broken.
Yeah, yeah.
So
whatever happened with Dad after the divorce?
Well, so Dad continued to drink for many years. My father... we were actually, by the time we were in college, estranged. I would say we didn't really have a relationship. That's when I entered counseling and did some work on myself and really faced some things. My father today is actually a Christian and is in recovery and has been a Christian and in recovery for about 10 years.
So how old was he when he got into recovery about?
In his 60s.
There you go. Never too late.
Never too late,
and
absolutely.
How did that happen? What
for him?
What turned it around?
Well, actually, so one of the things my mom had always challenged me with was to always pray for my dad and to always reach out to my dad if he ever wanted a relationship. And so through my own work, I had decided with my counselor that if my dad ever reached out, and I was going to pray for him daily, that if he ever reached out and wanted a relationship, I was going to be part of that.
Yeah.
And so my dad called me out of the blue. We were actually in the middle of adopting our son 11 years ago from Ethiopia.
All right.
And he said, hey, can I talk to you guys? And so we drove to southern Indiana. That's where I grew up. And he basically had kind of had a life-death situation, like where he could have lost his life, ended up going to church. And the pastor of that church was in recovery from alcoholism.
Wow.
And he basically won him to Christ. And from that point on, my father and I really started to develop a really, I would say for the first time in my life, a real father-daughter relationship.
And how about your mom? How did she come out of all of that?
Yeah, my mom grew up in a home of addiction as well. She learned all that as well in our journey as a family. But she was single for years and then ended up remarrying to my stepfather, who was a solid Christian man.
Yeah.
I would say my mom was instrumental in helping us because of all the work my mom had personally done on herself. And because she had, like what you said in your devotion, my mom had really surrendered herself to Christ. My mom was instrumental in helping my brother and I walk through that brokenness and some of just the patterns that come from addiction that you don't recognize when you're in it as a family.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of my passion came from, really helping the family.
So your mom was aware, she was committed, she was a counselor. But all of that didn't cause him to say, I want to get better. What do you think about that?
Well, I've had lots of thoughts about that.
Yeah, okay.
When I was younger, I went through stages of almost grief. I was really angry with my dad. I questioned myself a lot. I mean, that's where I think people don't realize how much it affects the family.
Yeah.
Because I thought, what's so wrong with me? Why does my dad not want a relationship with me? When really he was just broken. He wasn't able to connect because he had a relationship with alcohol, is the way I put it. And so I just went through stages where I would try to get his attention, where I would want him to be part of my life. Then there would be some type of rejection, meaning he just wouldn't show up for something because he, maybe was out partying the night before. So I went through a lot of those phases until I really worked on myself and realized I was broken too. And so was, again, the family, but I had to heal from that brokenness and realize I'm not doomed to follow that path just because he did.
Yeah. So you made this bridge from all of the weird and strange feelings about Dad to, I'm going to pray for him, and I'm going to be open and available if he ever contacts me. How'd you get there? Because a lot of people, they're not there.
Right.
I will hate him until he asks for forgiveness.
Yes.
And
I would say I was one of those people. So I actually started going to counseling in college. That's when I really kind of, actually it's kind of funny, I kept dating a bunch of boys that were addicts. And that kind of drove me to counseling.
That's hilarious. No, I know you didn't mean
true.
Yeah.
And I went to the counselor, and she was a phenomenal Christian counselor, and she basically looked at me and said, and this was 2 or 3 weeks into our sessions, she said, if you keep dating the same type of person, maybe it's something with you that you need to look at.
There you go.
And so that kind of started my journey as far as me learning that I need to heal myself, and I needed to recognize that my dad was broken, just like everyone else. And he was, the way I put it is, he's incapable of having a relationship, as long as he had a relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
That helped me, and it probably took me a year and a half. I walked through a very grieving process, but I also did a process where I was able to come to the place to forgive him, regardless if he was ever going to change.
Yeah.
And I kind of surrendered it to God. That was a huge part for me to be able to say, and understand my identity in Christ, that my identity wasn't relying on my dad accepting me or loving me. And my dad always loved me, it's just that I didn't feel that in the time. And so when I was able to surrender that and come to that conclusion, it was a long process. So I tell people, if you think it's going to happen like that, it's just, it's not a quick fix.
Well, the other thing is that you had a great outcome there. I think it's a rare
I would agree with that 100%.
A lot of times when people are into their 60s, they drink until that one drink is way too many. So as you've developed, you've gotten into counseling, you're helping people turn things around. But before the healthy part, what would you say would be maybe the biggest impact on your life growing up, the divorce, the addiction, all of that? Who is that person? Who was Lori before getting better?
I would say Lori was lost. I was very insecure. I wasn't sure who I was. I learned really quickly that if I was a perfectionist, I got people's attention. I did things really well. So I tried to do everything to the best of my ability and do it perfect. And I was angry at myself if I didn't. So there was a shame cycle there. Even though I never touched drugs or alcohol, I started a shame cycle where I was constantly beating myself up and telling myself I wasn't good enough. Even though I was a Christian most of my life, I still would, God doesn't, why would he believe me? He doesn't really love me enough. So that was kind of me prior to working on myself.
Well, I just want to mention, here we have Christians and they're struggling with addiction. Being a believer, of course, doesn't eliminate, nor does it fix everything once the problem develops. God works in mysterious ways, but the question is, what is he doing to work on me? Or what would the Holy Spirit have me do? What do I need to give up? All of us have an impact from childhood, whether it's addiction or codependency, whatever. We'll talk more about that impact when we come back. Really glad you're with us here today on Life Recovery Today. If you don't have a Life Recovery Bible, call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis. Someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here with Lori Burns. And, I don't know how your life is going, but if it's like a lot of my life, not so great, but it can be transformed. And if you need some help with that, Life Recovery Bible, workbook, many different resources that we have for you at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Okay, Lori, so you struggled, and then you started helping people, and you're helping a lot of people, and you're a specialist in addiction. So I like it when people can think back and tell the audience and me maybe something you wouldn't find in a book or something that not everybody's talking about, but just something you're aware of or or you've learned from all this, either about you or families or God. So with that laid out there, what do you have for us? Is there something that comes to mind?
I would say probably the biggest thing I have learned is just that, and this is in some books, but that idea of just continual growth and learning. So once I caught on that I'm never going to be perfect, I'm always going to be broken. I'm just as broken as the person who went out and got drunk the night before. Once I was able to figure that out, and then it's not necessarily books, it's not necessarily, it was just an ongoing, like if it's books, if it's classes, if it's people, I would say people have been the hugest thing for me as far as like mentors, people who have discipled me. And when I say that, it wasn't like they were in a discipleship relationship with me. They just walked alongside me during the hard times. And I learned from that. So once I kind of gained that knowledge of, hey, I need to keep learning and be a self-learner and realize God's continually growing me. And as long as I continue to surrender myself to Him and He continues to grow me, I'm going to learn things about myself. And so that put me on a path that really helped a lot of healing happen for me.
Very good. Well, I'm with you on this never stop growing. I see a therapist every week and start my Mondays morning trying to clean up after the weekend. But that's where we did. And because I tell people that they can benefit from counseling. If I don't go to counseling, I'm essentially saying I've arrived.
Right.
Well, it wouldn't take long to be around me to figure out I have not arrived. And so it's really helpful to continue to be in recovery, whether, the last recovery group, it's an online group and it's very helpful, or it's getting counseling. But too bad that people grow up and think, I've got to figure this all out myself. A lot of times, someone like in your situation, the brain kind of gets stuck at age 10.
Yep.
And it's really hard to turn that around. Now, let's just say somebody had a past like yours, difficult family and all of that, and they're feeling like I'm empty or I don't. Well, what do you say to that person? What's a first step to try to get things going in the right direction? I
really just listen and try to have empathy for anyone in that situation, because a lot of times, like you just said, they're not aware that there's something more there that they need. So I usually just do that to begin with. Then second, I really try to encourage them to do counseling, because especially find a Christian counselor, but really that counseling piece, along with groups, often is that piece that helps people kind of get outside of their mindset and start seeing a whole new world that I think actually God wants us to see so that we can transform. And that's, one of the things at New Day that we're really passionate about is making sure we treat the whole person, and their family, not just that individual who is trying to get into recovery. So that's my huge passion is families, just because I think I've grown up in that.
It's wonderful that this transformation has happened from having a problem to helping other people with problems. Everybody has a kind of a different take on codependency. Some people don't really even know what that means or whatever. But how would you describe either codependency or the life of a codependent? Help somebody understand that they might be in that situation.
Okay. What I usually describe to people is, if you feel the overwhelming need to allow that person to kind of run your life, if every decision you make is based on the addict or how you react, how you respond in life, you might be codependent. You might be struggling with that. If you can't set boundaries up with people and you give and give and give and give of yourself, but never do any self-care. I feel like it's a combo of things, because I agree everybody has their own opinion of kind of what a codependent is. But usually I almost look at codependency as often they're almost addicted to the codependency, because that way they don't have to focus on them. They don't have to worry about, or think about, what do I need to change in me if I'm focused on this other broken person who I'm trying to fix.
Yeah, I think that's one of the horrible things, is that you can be in a family or you can be married to somebody that's such a big target.
It is, I agree.
It's obvious that they've got the big problem. And then, well, that's the bad guy. I'm the good guy. They need help, and I don't. And you really miss the opportunity to grow. Now, my good friend Dave Stoop, who passed away March the 10th, Dave said that the big thing in his life as a codependent was realizing I wasn't doing things for myself. I wasn't doing the right things, or I wasn't doing the wrong things for the right reason. He said, I had the wrong reason. And the reason was selfish. I was doing it because it made me feel better. He said that was a big deal to come to that awareness.
Yeah, I would say a lot of times when you see that in a marriage, if you have an addict and a codependent, you have two people very focused on themselves. I mean, I love the way he describes that, because I feel like they are so focused on each other. It just, the codependent looks like it's kind of a mask. It looks like they're focused on everybody else, but it's really self-serving to take care of everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a huge awareness, and you get praise for, you're like a saint, and you like that role, and it's very hard to sacrifice that. And now, let's talk about the addict a little bit. We've talked about codependency. So what do you think is really important in developing a recovery that's deep, mature, rich? It's not just going through the motions. What would you say is important for that?
I think first of all, the addict has to make the decision they want to go into recovery, because
of course.
We have a lot of family members who like to think they're ready to make that decision, but they aren't. So once the person's really made that decision, I think it's a combo of looking at like their physical, their spiritual, their relationships and their skills level, and because they often haven't had healthy relationships, and then really figuring out their purpose or their identity and who God created them to be. I feel like so many of us put our identity in all these other things. And if you think about addicts, it's shame-based, but they usually have a lot, what I hear them say a lot is, I'm stupid, or their identity is wrapped around these shame-based statements. And that's not who they are. God didn't, we know that. God created them to reflect Him. And so I think a lot of times really helping people dive into their identity and who Christ created them to be, which is a combination of using evidence-based counseling and a Christian worldview, putting integrating those scriptures and those things together. And then I think it takes community. I think it takes the people around them where they can be honest and have someone that either it's mentoring them or they could share deeply with, but they kind of catch that idea that I need to continue to grow. And that's where I see the most success for those who are in recovery. So that's kind of what I would say.
Well, when I hear of your story and you're helping people, it's an example of a repurposed life. Do you feel that way, that God steered you over here and now?
Well, the funny thing about that is I decided to go into counseling out of undergrad into grad school. And when I entered grad school, I said, okay, I'll counsel anybody, any family, any couple. I'm not doing anything with addiction. I've done my time. I've done my time. I've lived it. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And so funny how God works. God just kept putting me, so I was totally resistant about working with addiction and recovery. And God just kept opening up windows and kept placing it in front of me until I came to the place, go back to that word surrender, until I kind of surrendered and said, okay, wait a minute. I have this story. He gave it, and you can look in the scriptures, all the characters in the scriptures that have a story. He's calling me to use that story. So once I accepted that, which was probably 5 or 6 years after I was into counseling and working at a church, I really started to embrace that. So it's funny that you say that, because I was resistant at first, and then once I embraced it and surrendered to it, He's continued to open paths for me to work on myself, because that journey's never done.
Right.
But also just be able to help others.
probably not very smart for somebody to say, I will never do this.
That's
because
true.
that just might be what
That's a
God
very
needs
true statement, yes.
to hear. So how do you stay sane? How do you stay healthy for yourself? What's going on in your life that keeps you coming back and going
my family's we live out in the country. My family's very outdoor, so we just love being outside. I just love being in nature with God. So I have a lot of accountability. I have people who are accountable. I also do counseling. And I do all those things to help my own soul and help me continue to grow. And that is life-giving to me, to help me continue to do the crazy. I have an amazing husband. We've been married almost 19 years. We do things together, go away for weekends and just kind of hang out. And we just enjoy each other's company, that type of thing. So I just do I would say there's not one thing, I do multiple things to just kind of help myself continue to be able to serve those who are hurting.
Well, glad you do.
Yeah.
And anybody in the Indianapolis area, you want to get in touch with Lori, you just call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and we can do that. Thank you for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Well, we'll take a break and come back, and I want to talk to you just a little bit more about life recovery.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. I don't want to shock anybody, but you have some defects of character. We all do. And here's the thing. We think, maybe if I just do this, all I'd have to do is this for a little while and it would get better. There is no all you have to do to get rid of defects of character. There's a recovery program that will help you do it. But you know what? You can't get rid of something unless you can see it. And I'll tell you, you can have 20/20 vision and be blind to those defects of character. Now, if you need some help finding somebody to help you see it, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and you can ask about Life Recovery Bible. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time right here on Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.